in which an affair unfolds, and we see the damage wrought upon the scorned. Chapter 21. The temporary stable, a shed of wooden planks, had been built just next to the racetrack, and his horse was supposed to have been brought there yesterday. He had not seen her yet. For the last 2 days he had not ridden her himself, but had entrusted her to the trainer and had no idea what condition his horse had arrived in, or was in now. As soon as he got out of the carriage, his groom, known as Boy, having recognized his carriage from a distance, called the trainer. The dry Englishman in high boots and a short jacket, with only a tuft of beard left under his chin, came out to meet him with the awkward gait of a jockey, spreading his elbows wide and swaying. "Well, how's Frau?" Vronsky asked in English. "All right, sir," the Englishman's voice said somewhere inside his throat. "Better not go in," he added, raising his hat. "I've put a muzzle on her, and the horse is agitated. Better not go in, it upsets the horse." "No, I'd rather go in. I want to have a look at her." "Come along," the frowning Englishman said as before, without opening his mouth, and swinging his elbows, he went ahead with his loose gait. They entered the little yard in front of the shed. The dashing, smartly dressed lad on duty in a clean jacket, with a broom in his hand, met them as they came in and followed after them. In the shed, 5 horses stood in stalls, and Vronsky knew that his main rival, Moccatin's 16-hand chestnut, Gladiator, was to have been brought that day and should be standing there. Even more than his own horse, Vronsky wanted to have a look at Gladiator, whom he had never seen. But Vronsky knew that by the rules of horse fancier's etiquette, he not only should not see him, but could not even decently ask questions about him. As he went down the corridor, the lad opened the door to the second stall on the left, and Vronsky saw a big chestnut horse with white legs. He knew it was Gladiator, but with the feeling of a man turning away from a temptingly open letter, he turned away and went to Frau's stall. "Here's the horse that belongs to Mac. I never can say the name," the Englishman said over his shoulder, pointing with his dirty-nailed thumb to Gladiator's stall. "Moccatin? Yes, that's my one serious rival," said Vronsky. "If you were riding him," said the Englishman, "I'd place my bet on you." "He's stronger. Frau's more high-strung," said Vronsky, smiling at the compliment to his riding. "In a steeplechase, everything depends on riding and pluck," said the Englishman. Vronsky not only felt that he had enough pluck, that is, energy and boldness, but what was much more important, he was firmly convinced that no one in the world could have more of this pluck than he had. "And you're sure there was no need for a longer workout?" "No need," the Englishman replied. "Please don't talk loudly. The horse is excited," he added, nodding towards the closed stall where they were standing in front of, from which they heard a stirring of hooves on straw. He opened the door, and Vronsky went into the stall, faintly lit by one little window. In the stall stood a dark bay horse, shifting her feet on the fresh straw. Looking around the half-lit stall, Vronsky again inadvertently took in at a glance all the qualities of his beloved horse. Frau was of average height and not irreproachable. She was narrow-boned all over, though her breastbone protruded sharply. Her chest was narrow. Her rump drooped slightly, and her front legs, and more especially her hind legs, were noticeably bowed inwards. The muscles of her hind and front legs were not particularly big. On the other hand, the horse was of unusually wide girth, which was especially striking with her trained shape and lean belly. Her leg bones below the knee seemed no thicker than a finger, seen from the front, but were unusually wide, seen from the side. Except for her ribs, she looked as if she was all squeezed from the sides and drawn out in depth. But she possessed, in the highest degree, quality that made one forget all shortcomings. This quality was blood, that blood which tells, as the English say. Her muscles, standing out sharply under the web of veins stretched through the thin, mobile and satin-smooth skin, seemed strong as bones. Her lean head, with prominent, shining, merry eyes, widened at the nose into a flared nostrils, with bloodshot inner membranes. In her whole figure, and especially at her head, there was a distinctly energetic and at the same time tender expression. She was one of those animals who, it seems, do not talk only because the mechanism of their mouths does not permit it. To Vronsky, at least, it seemed that she understood everything he was feeling now as he looked at her. As soon as he came in, she drew a deep breath and, rolling back her prominent eyes so that the white was shot with blood, looked at the people coming in from the opposite side, tossing her muzzle and shifting lithely from one foot to the other. "Well, there you see how excited she is," said the Englishman. "Oh, you sweetheart," said Vronsky, approaching the horse and coaxing her. But the closer he came, the more excited she grew. Only when he came to her head did she suddenly quiet down, her muscles quivering under her thin, tender neck. Vronsky stroked her firm neck, straightened a strand of her mane that had fallen on the wrong side of her sharp withers, and put his face to her nostrils, taut and thin as a bat's wing. She noisily breathed in and out with her strained nostrils, gave a start, lay her sharp ear back, and stretched out her firm black lip to Vronsky, as if she wanted to nibble his sleeve. Then, remembering the muzzle, she tossed it and again began shifting from one sculpted leg to the other. "Calm down, sweetheart, calm down," he said, patting her on the rump again, and with the joyful awareness that the horse was in the best condition, he left the stall. The horse's excitement had communicated itself to Vronsky. He felt the blood rushing to his heart, and, like the horse, he wanted to move, to bite. It was both terrifying and joyful. "Well, I'm relying on you," he said to the Englishman. 6:30 at the appointed place." "Everything's in order," the Englishman said. "And where are you going, my lord?" he asked, unexpectedly using this title, my lord, which he hardly ever used. Vronsky raised his head in surprise and looked as he knew how to look, not into the Englishman's eyes, but at his forehead, surprised by the boldness of the question. But realizing that the Englishman, in putting this question, was looking at him as a jockey, not as an employer, he answered him, "I must go to Bryansky's. I'll be back in an hour." "How many times have I been asked that question today?" he said to himself and blushed, something that rarely happened to him. The Englishman looked at him intently and, as if he knew where he was going, added, "The first thing is to be calm before you ride. Don't be out of sorts or upset by anything." "All right," Vronsky, smiling, replied in English, and, jumping into his carriage, gave orders to drive to Peterhof. He had driven only a few paces when the storm clouds that had been threatening rain since morning drew over, and there was a downpour. "That's bad," Vronsky thought, putting the top up. It was muddy to begin with, but now it'll turn into a real swamp. Sitting in the solitude of the closed carriage, he took out his mother's letter and his brother's note and read them. Yes, it was all the same thing over and over. His mother, his brother, Everybody found it necessary to interfere in the affairs of his heart. This interference aroused his spite, a feeling he rarely experienced. What business is it of theirs? Why does everybody consider it his duty to take care of me? And why do they pester me? Because they see that this is something that they can't understand. If it was an ordinary, banal society liaison, they'd leave me in peace. They feel that this is something else, that this is not a game. This woman is dearer to me than life. That's what they don't understand, and it vexes them. Whatever our fate is or will be, we have made it, and we don't complain about it, he said, uniting himself in Anna and the word we. No, they have to teach us how to live. They've got no idea what happiness is. They don't know that without this love there's no happiness or unhappiness for us. There's no life, he thought. He was angry with everybody for their interference precisely because in his soul he felt that they, all of them, were right. He felt that the love which joined him to Anna was not a momentary passion that would go away as society liaisons do, leaving no traces in the life of either one of them except some pleasant or unpleasant memories. He felt all the painfulness of his position and of hers, how difficult it was, exposed as they were to the eyes of all society, to conceal their love, to lie and deceive, and to lie and deceive, and scheme, and constantly think of others, while the passion that joined them was so strong that they both forgot everything but their love. He vividly remembered all those oft-repeated occasions of the necessity for lying and deceit, which were so contrary to his nature. He remembered especially vividly the feeling of shame he had noticed in her more than once at this necessity for deceit and lying, and he experienced a strange feeling that had sometimes come over him since his liaison with Anna. This was a feeling of loathing for something, whether for Alexei Alexandrovitch, or for himself, or for the whole world, he did not quite know. But he always drove this strange feeling away, and now, rousing himself, he continued his train of thought. Yes, she was unhappy before, but proud and calm, and now she cannot be calm and dignified, though she doesn't show it. Yes, this must be ended, he decided to himself. And for the first time the clear thought occurred to him that it was necessary to stop this lie, and the sooner the better. To drop everything, both of us, and hide ourselves away somewhere with our love, he said to himself. If you enjoy this format, please leave a like and subscribe and return tomorrow for the next chapter.